Welcome, gentlemen, to the God Bill. The Anatomy of Female Power is a must-read for any red pill man, yet hasn't received the same attention as Ester Vilar's The Manipulated Man, though it makes an excellent complement to it. Written in 1990, it is something of a proto-mgtow book detailing the dynamics of the 5 pillars of female power through which women rule mankind from cradle to grave. His greatest contributions are his argument that patriarchy is a facade, it's never existed, which is in line with turd-flinging monkeys' understanding that every human social order to date, hard patriarchy, soft patriarchy, and matriarchy, are ultimately gynocentric. The author also argues that feminism is not a revolt against men. A slave master doesn't revolt against their slaves, after all, but rather a cultural change relating to the 3 factions of woman's own community, as you'll see. An enlightening experience. I'll let the author's words speak for themselves. Anatomy of Female Power, a masculinist dissection of matriarchy, for all men who have been confused, misused, and abused by women, particularly since the coming of feminism, and definitely not for women. In this brief treatise, Chinweizu challenges one of the fundamental premises of feminism. He shows how women rule men, and have always ruled men, and he outlines what men might do to reduce female power, and so advance towards equality in hardships and privileges with women. Chinweizu is a Nigerian cultural critic, poet, and occidentalist. His books, essays, and newspaper articles have been published in Africa, Europe, and North America. His popular column, The Chinweizu Observatory, appears in the Sunday Vanguard in Lagos. He brings to his cultural analysis his skills as a journalist, his experience as a traveler, and his training in various disciplines, mathematics and philosophy, American studies and history, and postdoctoral research in economics. His recreations are dancing and mathematics. Dedication. To the handful of women now in my life, platonic friends, lovers, ex-lovers, lovers-to-be, to the countless others who have slipped in and out of my life, and especially to those who have attempted to marry me. From them I have learned most of what I know about women. Epigraphs. The object of woman's existence is not to war with man or allow man to war with her, but simply to conquer him and hold him in subservience without so much as a threat or a blow. Clever women always do this. Clever women have always done it. Marie Corelli, British novelist. What woman hasn't been able to wrap a man around her fingers if she puts her mind to it? Regina Joseph, Nigerian columnist. You think, we men are clever. If you see womankind and watch how 4 or 5 of them sit together and tell each other things, you think, instead of chatting here, they ought to get up, go home, and cut grass. As you talk like this to each other, you think in your own minds, they are stupid and ignorant. See, my grandchild, they are not stupid. Nothing in the whole world is cleverer than the female sex. Know this, if you are as other men, you are not as intelligent as a woman. I tell you, a woman is clever. And if you respect what is woman's business, your reputation will not suffer, and your wife will honor you, because she knows that you have learned to keep quiet, like other men. Teachings of the Chaga elders of Tanzania. Prologue. Who rules who, man or woman? In the last couple of decades, feminist propaganda has sought to persuade the world that women are powerless in society and that men are natural oppressors of women. It claims that wives are subordinate to their husbands in the home, and that outside the home men have excluded women from political, economic, and cultural power. Some, like Ellen Galford of Britain, say women are slaves and men are masters. Some, like Andrea Dworkin of the USA, say all housewives are economically exploited. All working women are. And ones like Carol Henish of the USA have gone so far as to deny that women have any power at all over men. The term men's liberation was derived from the term woman's liberation, and thus insinuates that women have power over men. Its very name infers liberation from female domination. and is therefore an inversion of facts as well as woman's liberation principles. As a rule, those few women have not been taken seriously who have bothered to acknowledge female power over men, like Denise Plummer, the Trinidadian calypso singer who proclaims that woman is boss, or like the expatriate Nigerian actress Patty Bole, who says most men are controlled by women, or like the Argentinian Ester Vilar, who says, women let men work for them, think for them, and take on their responsibilities. In fact, they exploit them. This great division of opinion among women should prompt one to ask, which kind of claim is true? Which picture is the illusion, and which the reality? Conventional modern opinion, as well as the social sciences, would appear to support the feminist picture. It is conveniently assumed that female power, if it existed, would be wielded by a woman through some public system of authority. It is also held by conventional expert opinion that matriarchs, who would be the natural wielders of female power, are illusory, and that matriarchy, a system of females wielding authority, does not exist. For instance, the concise Oxford Dictionary defines a matriarch as a woman corresponding in status to a patriarch, usually jocular. The venerable compilers of that dictionary add that the word is derived from the Latin mater, mother, on false analogy of patriarch. Treating the notion as a joke derived on a false analogy suggests that matriarchs are illusory, phantom figures. However, powerful matrons, often elderly, who dominate family groups and clans, who are patriarchs in all but their gender, are neither unknown nor rare. Similarly, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, matriarchy is a social system in which familial and political authority is wielded by a woman, and that repository of conventional knowledge adds that the consensus among modern anthropologists and sociologists is that a strictly matriarchal society never existed. This in despite of the fact that in some African and Native American societies, women did have their structures of political authority parallel to and countervailing those of men. When a definition will not allow us to acknowledge what is before us, it is flawed. For example, if we define the sun as a square star, it would then be, strictly speaking, true that there isn't and never has been a sun. But since such a claim flies in the face of our experience, we would have to reject that definition for not capturing the reality and for misleading us into the absurdity of denying the existence of the sun we can see and point at. On similar grounds, we would have to reject the conventional definitions of matriarch and matriarchy for flying in the face of the examples cited above. In any case, even if no strictly matriarchal society ever existed, that would not imply that female power did not exist. Authority is only one of the many types of power, and the wielding of authority is not necessary for the exercise of many types of power. Power without authority is neither unknown nor rare, as is recognized when it is said that someone is the power behind the throne. Such obscurantist views from the organs of conventional knowledge suggest that female power has yet to receive the investigation it desires. Feminist propaganda and conventional knowledge notwithstanding, it seems prima facie odd to claim that women are powerless in society, and in particular over men. What one wants, that then women are far from powerless. Women do get, and always did get, what they want, be it riches or thrones, or the head of John the Baptist, or routine exemption from hardships and risks which their menfolk are obliged to endure. That women operate by methods which often differ from those available to men does not in any way mean that women are bereft of power. If women are not powerless, are they perhaps less powerful than men? Some feminists find it in their interest to have the world believe this, and for proof they point to the public structures of political, economic, and cultural power and show these are almost exclusively occupied by men. But does that prove what they aim to prove? Not at all. All it shows is that in the public structures which form the domain of male power, women are not well represented. If this underrepresentation is to prove that women are less powerful than men, it would need to be also true that those public structures exhaust the modes and centers of power in society. Alas, for feminist claims, they do not, for there indeed are other modes and centers of power which women monopolize. Such are the subjects of this inquiry. In those centers, women control scarce resources, commodities, and opportunities, and they distribute them. They exercise power through education, propaganda, directives, suggestions, rewards, and punishments. They wield instruments of persuasion and coercion. As this inquiry shall show, matriarchs who wield female power and matriarchy, an organized structure or institution for the exercise of female power, do exist. Indeed, have always existed. The power that they wield is neither illusory nor a joke. Furthermore, in human society, it is not male power, but female power which is supreme. Or rather, to change the imagery, however great male power may be, it is to female power what the 1/7 of an iceberg which is visible above water is to the 6/7 which lie below the waterline. As we shall see, the male modes of power are actually tributary to the female modes, inasmuch as the fruits of male power are poured at the feet of women through the workings of female power. That men seek wealth, power, status, and fame for the love of woman is widely attested to my knowledgeable commentators. According to Ester Vilar, man's work is only done with woman in view. And from his studies of the human psyche, Sigmund Freud reports, in the greater number of ambitious daydreams, too, we can discover a woman in some corner, for whom the dreamer performs all his heroic deeds, and at whose feet all his triumphs are to be laid. From his own experience, Aristotle Onassis, an ambitious and very successful businessman of this 20th century, confirms this when he declared, "If woman didn't exist, all the money in the world would have no meaning." Moreover, male preoccupations with wealth, power, fame, and status in order to win the love of woman is quite natural, being rooted in the animal origins of humanity. As Robert Ardrey reports, it would be unreasonable, in light of our new knowledge of animal behavior, to conclude that feminine attraction for wealth and rank and masculine preoccupations with fortune and power and fame are human aberrations. If the natural goal of male power is to pay tribute to woman, then male power is naturally tributary to female power. If, however powerful a man may be, his power is used to serve the woman in his life, that would make dubious the notion that men are masters over women, because every man has a boss, his wife, or his mother, or some other woman in his life. Men may rule the world, but women rule the men who rule the world. Thus, contrary to appearances, woman is boss, the overall boss of the world. To understand why woman rules man, we need to examine female power and how it operates on men. Chapter 1: The 5 Pillars of Female Power. You reckoned without the powers of a woman, they always know what they want, and they get it in the end. Remark at a Nigerian party. Female power exists. It hangs over every man like a ubiquitous shadow. Indeed, the life cycle of man from cradle to grave may be divided into 3 phases, each of which is defined by the form of female power which dominates him: mother power, bride power, or wife power. From birth to puberty, he is ruled by mother power, as exercised over him by his one and only mummy dearest. Then he passes into the territory of bride power, as exercised over him by his bride-to-be, that cuddlesome and tender wench he feels he cannot live without. This phase lasts from puberty to the wedding day, when the last of his potential brides finally makes herself his wife. He then passes into the domain of wife power, as exercised over him by his own resident matriarch, alias his darling wife. This phase lasts till he is either divorced, widowed, or dead. In each phase, female power is established over him through his peculiar weakness in that stage of his life. Mother power is established over him while he is a helpless infant. Bride power holds sway over him through his great need for a womb in which to procreate. If he didn't feel this need, he wouldn't put himself into the power of any owner of a womb. Wife power is established over him through his craving to appear as lord and master of some woman's nest. Should he dispense with this vanity, not even the co-producer of his child could hold him in her nest and rule him. There are 5 conditions which enable women to get what they want from men: woman's control of the womb, woman's control of the kitchen, woman's control of the cradle, the psychological immaturity of man relative to woman, and man's tendency to be deranged by his own excited penis. These conditions are the 5 pillars of female power. They are decisive for its dominance over male power. Though each is recognized in popular jokes and sayings, their collective significance is rarely noted. There is a joke which goes thus: First woman, the way to a man's heart is through his belly. Second woman, aren't you aiming a few inches too high? This joke pays tribute to how the womb and the kitchen control the feelings of men. A man can be controlled by the hunger in his belly, and by the other hunger, which flares up just below his belly. Consequently, he can be manipulated by whoever controls the kitchen which feeds him, or by whoever carries the womb through which he craves to procreate. The man abandons the kitchen to woman and grovels for access to a womb, are not ordained by the nature or by God, but result from how woman who controls the cradle has chosen to condition boys and girls. We must remember the saying that the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. That is so because whoever trains a child in its first year shapes it for life. Woman who rules the nursery shapes boys and girls for life, and the ways in which she shapes boys and make them what they become as men. Women enjoy 2 other advantages, which are the subjects of popular sayings. It is said that a man comes of age at 60 and a woman at 15, which is why, in the eyes of women, men are babies, or at best, little boys. When Nora Ephron of the USA declared, "Men are little boys," she was voicing a view held, and frequently articulated, by women all over the world. That men are babies or little boys is why a bride can fool her suitor, however much older than her he may be, and why a wife can rule her husband so readily. Being a baby in the hands of his bride or wife, the suitor or husband is rare who discovers the true nature of the courtship or marital encounter before it is all too late for him. He often does not do so till he is shoved into his grave, leaving whatever he has accumulated through a lifetime of toil and risk to his widow to make merry with. It is also said that when his penis stands up, a man's brain takes French leave, which is why a woman who wants to rule a man first gets to his penis to stand up and salute her. How did female power acquire these 5 pillars from whose top it dominates men? The womb is evolution's priceless gift to woman. Man's psychological immaturity and his deranging penis are evolution's special handicaps on man. As if these natural advantages were not great enough, women have artfully annexed the kitchen and the cradle and turned them into control centers from which to manipulate man. Of these 5 pillars, the womb is by far the most important, because it is of exceptional importance in reproduction, because woman has a monopoly of it, and because of man's irrepressible craving to use it, the womb has become woman's supreme headquarters for manipulating men. It is female power's ultimate base. And that, gentlemen, is the opening of The Anatomy of Female Power. I'll be recording and posting the remaining chapters as I go. Until then, feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment, and donate. Stay androcentric, fellas, and have a good day.